She wanted me to be here today to remind everybody that every day is instructive. And the situation we see in Haiti should be instructive to the rest of us. Because it wasn't the natural disaster that brought down the people of Haiti. It was the unnatural disaster of the United States, Canada, France, and economic policies that kept them from developing a structure where they could survive a natural disaster. And they continued it with Clinton removing any change or stopping any change that would bring about self-sufficiency for the Haitian people, with Bush, who continued this destructive political attitude towards Haiti. And now we have the good brother or the bad brother Obama appointing Clinton and Bush to be in charge of what's happening in Haiti. So now I say that's instructive to the rest of us. Because here we are in this nation where we have 4 million foreclosures based on that criminal legal paper called a subprime loan. We have 6 million more to go due to that criminal paper, the subprime loan. And 70 to 75% of black and Latino people who got those subprime loans were eligible for regular loans. This is a program to make us weak economically. So now we see those 10 million are down, and 10 million more will take their place closer to the bottom, where you have any natural disaster following the unnatural disaster of political chicanery by this government towards poor people and people of color, then we too will be just like the people of Haiti. So we here today are here to say we're going to have a structure. We recognize the need of a strong structure in place that will defend and plan for us who are about to be disposed of. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you to fear things that you don't already know need to be feared. And I do believe that we are going to have a greater audience soon, because we are going to have hunger in this country. And as a friend of mine would say, listen, Ralph, you're out there, I've watched you for 40 years, and you're out there working to try to get the people to understand their situation. And he says, I'm going to tell you, when you take their job, they're jobless. When you take their home, they're homeless. But when they're hungry, they're going to be ready to fight. And I'm going to help you organize them to fight when they get hungry. And I tell you, we have malnutrition in the country today. But due to the unnatural disaster of Monsanto and corporate regulations on farming, they have a problem they can't fix. People are going to be hungry. We have to be ready to organize them. And I think we're the core that's going to do that job. I thank you, and Lynne thanks you. She knows when you're having these meetings, her heart, she feels it right through the walls.
About the court date.
There is no court date. What has happened recently, I wasn't going to bring this up, what has happened recently, you know, as was explained, they said 28 months isn't enough, so they had to up it to 70 months. Sack and Calabrese and Walker, they asked for 70 months. Now I found out this morning that they haven't sent down the mandate because they have another one coming, that they're going to be asking for more. But this is what happens to people who tell truth. Not only here, we know about them. We know about Malcolm. And Lynne became a political person in 1962 when she walked from 135th Street to 125th Street and Lenox Avenue. She was born 5 miles from there, and she was valedictorian of every class she was ever in. And she says, I didn't know this place existed. And she describes me
She wanted to know who was going to tell me about what happened, and she says, I saw an angry guy, believe it or not, and I had an afro, walking down the hall of the school, and I was willing to tell her why we are here, what this condition is about, because somebody wanted it that way. Not that there's anything wrong with us. There's something wrong with the society. She learned, she took up the struggle, and she is where she is because she took up the struggle. But I would like to say to all of those who would have fear, as she has said to me many times, do not fear for me, because I have been privileged for 70 years. I've had skin privilege in America, and it's time to give something back. So she used her talents, the skin privilege she had, and she says, they can do nothing to me because I have had those 70 years. So keep up the fight. We have political prisoners who have suffered far greater than she has, and she never forgets to mention Pam Africa, Leonard Peltier, Mumia, and so many others who have suffered so much more than she has. So she says, keep up the fight. We will keep up the fight. We will keep up the fight to keep Lynne out here, because now that she's in jail, she's become herself again. She's settled down. She's doing the fight on the inside. So thank you for having me, and I will report back to Lynne the wonderful, beautiful faces and give her all the names I can, and that will pick her up. That is, if they let me in, because they've kept me out several times. And I always laugh and I say, here, this gentleman gets on a transcontinental flight, and he doesn't have a passport, but somebody said he's okay. And I go to the local prison here, and I have my passport and my certificates and all. You can't come in. So this is how we know this is all a game, nonsense. And while we were looking at the young man who had materials that couldn't light a match, they continued the Patriot Act. We weren't watching the Patriot Act, and our good brother Obama, and I could say so much about him, but I'd have you here to midnight telling you about this bum. And we have to wake up people, but I don't think we have to work so hard at it, because he is going to wake up people. He's probably doing something right now that's going to spin our heads tomorrow morning. And that will wake up people. We just have to be ready to interpret what he's doing. So, and I think we have a core here. I know we have a core here. You people understand. We just have to tell it to the others when they're in lines and they're hungry. People have been too embarrassed to talk about foreclosures. But when it gets to the 10 million, they won't be embarrassed. We'll be able to talk to them, and maybe we'll be able to turn this country around. Thank you so much for having me. Victory, and all those other beautiful words.
Y'all give him a strong black hand. 2009 was a watershed year for a lot of anniversaries. The anniversary of the Panther 21 case, the Young Lord case, and so forth and so on. And the brother I'm about to bring up here has an anniversary too that was significant the last year. And most of us that know Baba James, we know him, of course, in this work around Malcolm with his role in steadying and anchoring for so many years the annual pilgrimage to the gravesite. And we've had that for every year since '66. Every year, truly maintained a tradition. But in 1969, this young man, this young soldier in the Malcolm tradition, did a takeover of City College, an armed takeover. Y'all listen to me good. And you'll get credit for this. I don't know why. I don't understand that, Baba. I really don't understand that. So I think folks trying to buck dance around something that we need to be dealing with. An armed takeover of City College. 2009 was a watershed year for a lot of anniversaries. The anniversary of the Panther 21 case, the Young Lord case, and so forth and so on. And the brother I'm about to bring up here has an anniversary too that was significant the last year. And most of us that know Baba James, we know him, of course, in this work around Malcolm with his role in steadying and anchoring for so many years the annual pilgrimage to the gravesite, and we've had that for every year since '66. Every year, truly maintained a tradition. But in 1969, this young man, this young soldier in the Malcolm tradition, did a takeover of City College, an armed takeover. Y'all listen to me good. And you don't get credit for this. I don't know why. I don't understand that, Baba. I really don't understand that. So I think folks trying to buck dance around something that we need to be dealing with. An armed takeover of City College that ushered in its Africana Studies program. Now, I know some of these professors walking around thinking they got jobs because they're smart. And some students, we got a new generation of students. They really got a house Negro manufacturing machine in these colleges right now. Y'all watch these colleges. We got to be on our kids, because the other side is on them to misdirect them and to turn them against us. And we just shine with the history of people like Baba James Smalls. Y'all give him a strong black hand. James Small.
We are at war.
That's right.
And sometimes we forget that because we are not teaching the nature of the war. Mr. President Obama, when he was in New York, was at City College for a while working with a group called NYPIRG. Now, I go back. I'm young, but I was just so happy to make 64 the other day. Because, Lord, I didn't think I would make 21, didn't think I'm going to make 30, you know what I'm saying? We out here. And so 64, I says, that's a blessing from the divine and the ancestors. It would be nice if it was really true that we had an African American president who could take the agenda and the interests of oppressed people. We are at war.
That's right.
And sometimes we forget that because we are not teaching the nature of the war. Mr. President Obama, when he was in New York, was at City College for a while working with a group called NYPIRG. Now, I go back. I'm young, but I was just so happy to make 64 the other day. Because, Lord, I didn't think I would make 21, didn't think I'm going to make 30, you know what I'm saying? We out here. And so 64, I says, that's a blessing from the divine and the ancestors. It would be nice if it was really true that we had an African American president who could take the agenda and the interests of oppressed people before the world. But that is not true, people. It is not true. Let me tell you a story about me and then you'll understand his story. One day at City College, I get a call to come into the alumni office. And I went in, we had taken over the college, we had created open admissions for the whole country, we had ushered in Africana Studies, we had quadrupled the population of minority kids in City University, and we were about to seize the student center because from that base you can control the rest of the college. And so I got a call from the alumni chair, Mr. Cy Weissman, to come by his office. And I went by the office and they said, James, you know, you have a great future. And we know you don't have a master's degree or a PhD. And I know people like to call me Dr. Small, and I'm your doctor, but I don't have a master's or a PhD, and I was the only professor at the university that didn't have one and taught for 18 years. Here's what the offer was. If you would back off of seizing this center, which was a $2 million budget that we used when we had it, and those who know, we used it for the community for 17 years before they kicked me out of there. They said, if you don't do that, we will give you a master's and a PhD. I said, oh, wow, that sounds good. You know, I had 3 kids. I was struggling, trying to make a little money. And they said, we'll make sure you got a job. I said, oh, that really sounds good. And there were some other guys in there who I didn't know, the big boys from downtown somewhere. So I said, what happens when I do what I do and speak out? Will y'all go to the press and expose me? They said, oh, no, you don't have to worry. We will sit someone in the classroom and earn it for you. All we want you to do is to get out of this black movement at City College. That was light. That was round one. Next, that didn't work. When I got up and says, no, they said, nigga, what do you want? Now, I had to say, if this white guy called me nigga, he had back, because I didn't know the other three fellas in the office and where they were from. So I said, I want for my people what you want for yours. And then they threw me out of the office. Then I get the second offer. President of the college, Bobby Marshak, asked me, I was fighting him over an issue of Marjorie Henderson Dunbar's firing. And we had gotten in a real heavy thing where he thought I had threatened him. So he threatened me. And then after the threat, he calls me to his office for this meeting, and sitting in the office is someone named I think his name is Mr. Finn, and a Miss Rudder, head of the biggest public relations firm in New York called Rudder and Finn. So they told me that Bobby had told them what a great guy I was and how brilliant I was. And they came to offer me a job. I'm an undergrad now. Not even trying to go to class, because my whole thing for being there is political fighting. And I says, what kind of job? They said, well, you're going to work for our public relations firm, and we'll give you an office at City College, and we'll give you an office downtown. So I said, well, you know, my grammar's kind of bad, because I'm a Geechee person. I don't really speak English. And they said, don't worry about that. You get it's called before the tape thing, there was a thing you speak in, and your secretary types. So we're going to give you a secretary. And at that time, they were offering me $75,000 a year. That was money. I wasn't making $10,000 a year with them three kids. And when I said no, Bobby Marshak jumped up and said, I told you James wasn't for sale. I say that to come back to Mr. Obama because he was chosen, groomed, and prepared. They never thought of the presidency. That's an accident of history, and they just had him prepared. He was prepared to go in the U.S. Senate and represent the interests of certain economic and political groupings. We saw what they did to Cynthia McKinney and put their people in there. We saw what they did with the brother in Alabama, put their people in there. And I was working with Sister Dorothy Tillman in Chicago for 5 years around the reparation issue, and they were able to remove Dorothy and put their people in there. They have been doing that for a very long time, the powers that be. Coming into the black community, tracking and grooming the brightest of us, and putting them in high places to carry out their policies while having us in our emotional love for one another, thinking we finally arrived and have a say in the matter. Okay? But we have not arrived. Because remember, it was Mr. Obama as a senator that helped write the bill to sanction Zimbabwe. Okay? He's one of the authors of the anti-Zimbabwe legislation out of Washington, D.C. Okay? He played a game on us. The African American community voted for this man 95%. And when any block of votes in this or any nation votes for someone, you do expect your interests to be addressed. And when people approached him over the last few months about addressing the interests of African American people, he said, I don't have to do that. Whatever I do for America, that will serve the African Americans. Now he sat down with every other constituency and addressed their concerns and made promise on how to alleviate some of the things that are critical to their lives. But he doesn't feel he have to do that for this community. And let's talk about some of the whys. See, African American peoples. Now I'm a Geechee boy from South Carolina, from the swamps. My grandfather and great people all come from what we call, when we said the Caribbean, the maroon community, but in the South we call it the Freewood. Okay? The Freewood is where I come out of, the Freewood, on both sides. And so I didn't come to New York and got blackened up. I went to my grandmother and says, I gotta go because Malcolm had been assassinated. I said, I gotta find that organization, I gotta join it. And I came, and I remember Lumumba, y'all were on the stage, 125th Street, Sister Ella was speaking. So I said, let me test these brothers. So I maneuvered through the crowd and I put my hand on Ella's foot, and the brothers was about to jump me, and she said no. She took a pen and a note and gave me her number and address and says, you come by my house on Tuesday night was meeting night, right? And that's how I got into OAU. And Lumumba Grant was one of the brothers that was there. And that's where I learned about Baba Herman from coming into that organization. I'm saying that to say, my family taught me that we were at war.
Yes, sir.
Our nation, and we are a nation, African American peoples. Now sometimes we say, well, we shouldn't say African American, we should just say African, but African is our race. America is a geopolitical place where we are struggling. We must identify ourselves in terms of ethno-nation if you're to define the critical issues that affect your peculiar existence there. We haven't done that very well. And so somehow we get convoluted and our issues never really get addressed because everyone wants to pretend that 60 million people don't exist, 60 million people who have been waging war from day one for 500 years. And we exist, and we will not disappear. You know? I just returned from the continent, so I'm limping a little bit because I've had some real strange experiences going to the continent back and forth. You know, a group of us who are pan-Africanists and nationalists, we bought a hotel in Ghana. And we deliberately did it with our money. No banks would loan us any money. This is like $1,000 from here, $500 from here. And we raised $1 million in 2 years, and we bought it. And we've set it up. But it isn't just a hotel. You know, we are doing other things. And so one of the things that happened to me in Ghana last year, I happened to be at the hotel trying to put on a new roof. Because the old roof, you know, you buy an old place, you got to fix it up. So we working on the roof, and then Mr. Obama's coming to town, so I'll go see Mr. Obama. Well, I go down by the slave dungeons with thousands of other people. And the group I was with, for some reason the police came and attacked that group. Ghanaian policemen. I didn't fight back, I simply protected Dr. Jeffries and his wife with my body, and Brother Cohane, one of my comrades over their wife, and pushed them out of the way. Some others got into physical combat with the police, and then it got settled down. The Obama people came over, and so everybody was seated. I'm standing in the back with Dr. Jeffries and his wife when 6 Ghanaian policemen approached me with the top brass and a soldier in uniform with an AK-47. So when he gets to me, he puts the clip in the gun. Click, click. And I was told, Mister, you have to leave. And he said, you got 2 choices. We will escort you out the front, or we'll open the barricades. So I says, why? Maybe you got the wrong guy. And he wouldn't say anything else to me except, Mister, you've got to leave. We will escort you out the front, or you can go through the barricades. So when he said it the 3rd time, Dr. Jeffries looked at me, so I said, okay, I will leave. And so they opened the barricades and they threw me out. The Mr. Obama's coming home to the slave dungeon. So as I walked back to our headquarters, because I work with an organization on the ground in Ghana, and our headquarters was a few blocks away, I know I'm being followed. So when I get there, I confront the man following me, and is a member of the president of Ghana's secret police. And I asked them, why are you following me? Of course, I didn't get an explanation. I had to call on some friends in higher places to back it off. I said that because for those of us who are freedom fighters, we have enemies that know we are their enemies, and it goes right up to the White House. Mr. Obama does not represent the African community nor the working poor in this country. He represents the banking ruling elite that intends to keep power, as far as they're concerned, by any means necessary. There's only one group in this nation that has challenged that system unstopped, and it's been the African American community. That's not to take away from any other community that have struggled, but for this community, without choice, we were forced to struggle around issues of freedom, ethics, and moral principles for 500 years. We don't have a choice because of our enslavement and because of the genocide that preceded it, that continued during it, and that continues now. They came at us after the 60s because we really hurt them politically, in terms of the international posture of the nation, politically in terms of our re-involvement in the society around economics, political, and cultural things. And so they decide to change the method of warfare against the black community. Overt discrimination did not look good in the world's eyes. So they had to move into a covert discrimination. But that covert discrimination had to be backed with a chemical warfare, which we call drugs, that this government decided, because they realized it was the black youth, and we were all youth back then, that it was the black youth that walked beside Martin King. It was the black youth that was in the Nation of Islam. It was the black youth that was with Malcolm X. And so they understood we've got to destroy the black youth. And they understand the laws of the country, you see. We won the voting rights, and we can now challenge them locally, statewide, and nationally, but particularly at the local and the state level. But they got laws that says if you're convicted of a felony, you lose your voting franchise. Now, how do we get people in a position where we can en masse convict them of felonies? And there's where the drugs came in. And then, of course, the weapons in our community. But something else had to happen. See, Brown versus the board, I hear people praise it. I have never, and anyone who's known me over the last 40 plus years I've been out here in New York, never supported Brown versus the board, because Brown versus the board was a sabotaging of the black movement by black and others, the boule and the black elite that want to partner with the white ruling elite. There was another Brown versus the board, a case out of Washington, D.C. There was another case before the Supreme Court at the time out of Camden, South Carolina. And there was another out of Virginia. All three cases asking for proportional return of the tax revenue of the black community for the purpose of the black community giving themselves appropriate education. So the powers got slick and came up with a scheme and took the daughter of the NAACP, and what was that place, Kansas? And filed a claim on her behalf that produced the Kansas case of Brown versus the board. And under the guise of uniting the four cases, they then only argued the one case. You understand what I'm saying? So the question of the proportional return of the black tax dollar back to the black community for educational use never came up before the court. And once they had produced this integration farce, it then allowed us to give up the socialization of our youth to the very enemy we were fighting. You understand that? No one put into place a policy to transform white, racist, anti-African behavior. And yet we gave our babies to them to be processed into adulthood, to then stand up for the interests of their group, and we are surprised at the products we are getting back. That is a part of the warfare that is being waged against us, and that is the nature of part of that warfare. The other thing we've got to be very clear on, Pan-Africanism had its roots in the Caribbean and the United States. Pan-Africanism had much of its strength in terms of articulating it for the world came out of the black movement in the United States. The United States of America France and all of Germany and Italy, the European community, as well as Asia, because I'm not a big lover of China as it stands, because much of the people in China today are the anti-Maoists who have come to power in China. We need to question a lot of their behavior. But fundamentally, what I want to get to is the natural resources of Africa. The natural resources of Africa that spins the wheel of the technocracies of so-called Western democracy. I've been going for the last 5 years. I spent approximately 8 to 9 months on the continent. The genocide that's going on the continent is horrific. And it's all engineered from the intelligence community of Israel, the United States, Britain, and France, particularly. Others too, but those are the particular instrument of subversion against freedom for African peoples on that continent, and setting up the conditions to rob them of their natural resources without building any sort of infrastructure of significance for the people of Africa themselves, and using, and you know I'm a very religious, spiritual guy, but using their religious institution, just as they've done it in the past, to kill the spirit of African people under the guise, I'm a Christian, I'm a Mormon, and yes, many brothers, I'm a Muslim. And even to my Muslim brothers, because Malcolm brought us Islam, it got a legitimacy I no longer think it deserves in our community. Because the warfare that's being waged against us is being waged not only against people who call themselves Christians, call themselves Muslims, but that psychological warfare that's being waged against us is being waged against the very foundation of the African culture and character. Now you can't tell me you're going to free me, but the one thing you're going to free me to be is not me. Let me say that again. You're going to free me, but the one thing I can be in your freedom process for me is not me. And when you take away my culture, and you take away my spiritual system, and you take away my ethical, moral value system, and that produced the worldview of humanity that makes me who the divine created me to be, you've committed genocide. And according to the United Nations Declaration of Genocide, that is genocide. And when you combine the theocratic genocide with the chemical genocide, the drugs in Africa, you can buy cocaine in Accra, Ghana, just like you do on the streets of Brooklyn now. When you combine that with the chemically produced seeds they're now giving our people to plant crops with, that's destroying other crops and destroying the people, that's genocide. Okay? When you come up with an international banking effort to force us economically into accepting privatization, and now you go into most African countries, the electrical grids belong to foreigners, the water belongs to foreigners, sanitation belongs to foreigners, telecommunications belong to foreigners. That is genocide, and that is insanity on our part. But that's the warfare. That's the nature of the warfare today that's being waged against us. And we need to understand, right here in the United States, where African peoples spent close to $1 trillion last year. I think brother was talking about the subprime mortgage. Well, they hit me with one of those too, because I put up one of my houses in order to work on the projects in Africa. And now I'm scrambling every day to meet a mortgage that jumped from $2,000 one month to $5,200. Okay, you know? But the point I'm making is that we are at war. And those of us who are still being held in the incarcerated conditions, those are prisoners of war. We've got to make it clear. We did not declare war on white America, nor on the United States of America, but the United States of America and culturally on the part of the white Americans declared war on us. And we have been defending ourselves for centuries in that war. Now I'm going to bring this to a conclusion, but I want to try to put something in place on how we need to view this, because we need to change some of the terminologies used. We are not minorities. That was a game they ran on us. That's right. And some of us said it back in the 60s. It's a game, you know. When we won major battles in the political arena to diffuse us being able to get the resources from those victories, they changed the legal label on who gets the resources and then dispersed it so the people who fought the battle hardly got anything from it. And we're wondering what happened. We're wondering what happened. But we had war economically. We had war politically. We had war culturally. And we had war spiritually. And we have to have the courage to say we are at war. I am a soldier. I hope I've been a good one. I've tried to be a good one, but I am a soldier. That's all I've ever known. My entire adult life have been in the posture of being a soldier. And I cannot see the war ending before this body lays down, so I will be that soldier for the rest of my days breathing this air. And we just have to make sure that our kids understand. Nothing to do with racism. I have white comrades who I know have fought every day like most of us, who I've fought beside. I have white brothers and sisters who I've struggled with and fought with. I'm not talking about race, because those of us who got sense enough to know there's only one race here. There is only one race. You know, we may have the variation in pigmentation, but the brother sitting right here with the white hair and the white skin, and I can pick my brother here with the dark skin and the dark hair, you're only 1/9 of 1% of biological difference between the two of you. There's something else that's going on. In the war to control the raw material and the natural resources of this world, someone had created a way to divide the human family so that they're in a perpetual war against one another. And since the largest segment that is engaged in the Western part of the world is the European population and the African population, then you have to destroy the identity of the African population so the European working population cannot see a possibility of them achieving trying to bond with that diminished group, and so they have to aspire to be a part of the oppressive group. Just simple psychological games they play on us as they play with the music. You know, I spoke with Tupac 3 days before Pac got killed, and he called the house, and he told me, he says, you know, Professor Small, we're gonna take over the distribution of rap music. So I said, Pac, you know what you're up against. You understand you're up against an organized criminal network of a number of European ethnic groups, and they're not going to let you just do that. But he said, no, we'll be back in the city in a few days after this fight thing. Come on by the house. We're going to talk about it. He says, we already enlisted some other brothers into it, and there's more that want to come in. Now, you got to understand, distribution is where the money is in the record industry, and that's billions of dollars. Well, he didn't live 3 days after that conversation. And he even addressed the issue between him and Biggie in that conversation, that it wasn't what the media was said, because him and Biggie was holding this dialogue about taking control of distribution. Not only was distribution the money part of it, but the distribution allow you to determine the content of your music. And someone, because they controlled the distribution of the music, was able to determine the content of our music. And because of the relationship between music and the socialization of the youth, someone then used the very voice of our youth to negatively program the masses of our youth to self-destruction using the rhythms of African peoples themselves. And you don't see the signs in psychological warfare against a nation of people. But we can begin to break this when we demand that we want to be free. to be who we are, who the divine created us to be. We have an ideological view on life. We have a worldview. We have ethical moral principles set down by ancestry that we need to examine. We may have to borrow many modern principles, but we can't decide until we examine some of our ancient principles and marry them to modern political principles and modern economic principles, and then design an ideology that comes out of our history and tradition of struggle that would allow us to teach a revolutionary way of life to our children. For me, today, you know, and I almost didn't get you out of steam. I'm not even, like Malcolm would say, I would not come before you this way inappropriately dressed, but didn't get a chance to go home to get appropriately dressed. But I wanted to come because this is my family. This is the family I've known all of my adult life. You're the people who have fought for the freedom of this world. And it's not just about Black Americans. I speak because that's my family, and we have been in the vanguard. It is about the freedom of the world. And, you know, the situation in Haiti fits what I just said. We look and see what's happening, and they're using that to put the Haitian people in a position in our mind that's not true. Haiti's got diamond, Haiti's got gold, but who's extracting the diamonds and gold? Haiti's got one, in terms of the Caribbean island, they're producing more of the vegetables and fruits you're eating in America than you know. The American agri-conglomerates are all down there. That's why there's 45,000 Americans in Haiti. Haiti has oil. Rumsfeld, when he was in there, said they're not going to allow Haiti to drill for oil because the Haitian oil is a part of America's oil reserve. There's a document you need to get your hands on. It came out in 1992. It's called, it's a white paper on the new American century, and the authors of it is Rumsfeld, Wolfowitz, Pearl, and Jeb Bush. And in that paper, they outline everything that they're doing right now, from Africa to the Caribbean. All of that mess in Iraq and Afghanistan was centrifuge to take the continent of Africa. And when you read that paper, they make it clear. They talked about AFRICOM before they formed it. They talk about the rapid deployment force they needed to put into West Africa. They talked about why they need to base this military group in Africa. They talk about what they had to do to control the natural resources of Africa for the use of the West. So we at war. And the wars around the natural resources of Africa particularly, and the wars against anyone who have the consciousness to be a freedom fighter to try and stop the aggression of these oppressive forces. So if we can just be clear on one thing, even when we don't know the nature of the war, just be clear, we are at war. And when we address our brothers and sisters who are incarcerated, be clear. They are prisoners, as my sister have said, of war. And for our part, let's be clear that we're going to win. Free the land.
Y'all give it up for him. Singers in the house. Okay. Yeah. And that's the tradition. Get ready to bring up our last speaker, and she needs no introduction.
But we got a serious job ahead of us right now. Where's Brother Herman? I done promised Brother Herman, and for those who don't understand, that when I use the word motherfucker, it is English. And Brother Herman will not allow me to come up here. He drove all the way up here. And I've been warned not to mess around and don't call these motherfuckers what they are, okay? So let's get serious. On Martin Luther King's birthday, the 15th, the Supreme Court convened to make a decision whether or not they're going to kill Mumia. No, whether they're going to kill Mumia. What was before them was the district attorney's proposal, and they've been working real hard at this, organizing, and for the death of Mumia. They convened Friday, which was Martin Luther King's birthday, and but we got a serious job ahead of us right now. Where's Brother Herman? I done promised Brother Herman, and for those who don't understand that when I use the word motherfucker, it is English. And Brother Herman will not allow me to come up here. He drove all the way up here. And I've been warned not to mess around and don't call these motherfuckers what they are, okay? So let's get serious. On Martin Luther King's birthday, the 15th, the Supreme Court convened to make a decision whether or not they're going to kill Mumia. No, whether they're going to kill Mumia. What was before them was the district attorney's proposal, and they've been working real hard at this, organizing, and for the death of Mumia. They convened Friday, which was Martin Luther King's birthday. Tuesday, we will know what that decision is. If they say that Mumia will get life in prison without the possibility of parole, and that's fucking unacceptable.
That's right.
Not with all we got. If they say that, then the district attorney will appeal that, calling for the death of Mumia, and would have to be a hearing on it. But if the judge goes with the district attorney and say that they're going to kill Mumia, that's it. We got to understand that. Now, how do we get here when in 1995 we shut Philadelphia down? In 1999 we called for millions for Mumia and we shut it down. Consistency is the key here. And not only consistency, but we got to be about what we say that we're about. I am the Minister of Confrontation for the MOVE organization. And it's not just words with us. Everything that we were charged to do, we have done. And will continue to do without reservations. And in 2001 or 2, because of the stand that we took and was able to bring people in here on the front line from around the world, I'm talking about officials, and the president wife of France, and been to Cuba with Fidel, sat down with decided to organize around it. These motherfuckers came to our door pretending that they were after one of our children, which they wasn't going to get, to try to come in our house and kill us. Well, that's exactly what they would have had to do. But because of the consistency, and because most people in this room know our children, you know that they're healthy, they're sane, and they're mood children, and don't back the fuck down, okay? They had to back down. They surrounded our house, had CNN with a big truck in front of the house, and are talking about coming in and killing us. I'm saying if you back down from them, you're dead. You're dead. And the proof of that is when you look in our neighborhoods, because we have given our strength to people who don't deserve it. And when you turn around and become a part of or give your strength to the empire, look around. Look at Harlem. Is Harlem black anymore? No. Is North Philadelphia? I'm saying we can go around the United States and we can see that. That's because we have not been consistent. And we go on to the enemy, looking for the enemy to do for us what we need to be doing for ourselves. I thank Dr. Smalls for educating people about the Board of Education. Just like that was the hope of the people who want to destroy us, so the hell was Obama. That is not the black hope. That was corporate America hope. And to put us to sleep. You see them building more prisons. Where is our reward for what we did? Where is it? I'm saying black folks are being put out their homes. They're building more prisons. And what we got as information and the stances that we have taken And I'm saying all these political prisoners should be home. It's not because of a lack of work and showing that there's wrong in what they're doing. It's a lack of us allowing these motherfuckers to walk around us and pretend that they're one of us. How is it that politicians who know that anytime a person is up for parole, and it's a lot of black political prisoners period, who is up for parole but cannot get parole because these people saying, fuck y'all. And then when they don't believe it, they turn around and send these black politicians, excluding Charles Barron. Charles Barron is always up there on the front line. Always up there on the front line. We got to believe in that which is believable. And I'm saying, and work with that which is believable. If a person like Obama is responsible and he's truly the head of this country, and that's a lie, I'm saying what our job is to do, not to go along with the game, but expose the game and step to the sucker. We gotta step to the sucker. You understand that? I'm saying the anti-war movement, and which dropped political prisoners, just like it was done during the Vietnam War. That's right. And right now, the exact same thing. The issue is a lot of us will not be in the position that we're in right now to do the things that we have been doing if it wasn't for political prisoners. I'm saying a lot of our children that's inside them jails got a protection on them because these brothers and sisters not only gave up their lives on the street for us, but they're also doing it for our children on the inside. I'm saying, how is it? I'm saying, and we have been put in jail and attempted to kill us because our battle is with corporate America. The people that is poisoning our air, that we all gotta breathe, that's poisoning the soil where our food come from. That's doing all these things that unite us. Don't people understand that the political prisoners must have water that is pure as well or close to? Don't you understand that the food that they're giving them now, that should be an issue? Health for these political prisoners. Little sister Teresa Schultz and her family, they do the damn with this government about their fathers. And I'm saying we got to come together as one because the issue of health for political prisoners is a must. And we got to unite together to do that. We got to unite together to deal with the issue of parole. Because I'm saying they're filling us out. How is it? My family, and we're still battling, and we're going to continue to battle. When my sister Ramona Africa and other MOVE members was told the only way that you can get out of prison is that you have got to disavow yourself from any MOVE member, then you can get out. Other than that, you're not coming out. My sister could have came out in 4 years. She kept, stayed true to, we're a family and we're not separated. You're not going to separate us. She damn near maxed out. In fact, Mona did max out. But at the end, they released 2 of the political prisoners before that time was up. It was consistency. We must be consistent. And we must be about what it is that we're saying that we're about. For all those people who say, because I went to many meetings where they say you need to pick up a weapon and you need to do this and do that, and if Mumia dies, it's going to be fire in the sky. Well, shit, I ain't seen no damn fire because Shaka Sankofa is dead and he was innocent. For those who take on those activities, stop playing games. Do what it is that you said you're going to do. Do it. And I'm saying you ain't got to be no talk about it, because anytime people stand up in a meeting and talk that kind of stuff and don't mean shit, because when it's done, people ain't supposed to know about it. You're supposed to read about it. These people must understand. Not only do this government must understand that there will be consequences for what you do, How is it that these politicians, black, white, Puerto Rican, and whatever other color or ethnic group that you belong to, can sit down and don't do what it is that you're paid to do? Let you miss not filing them damn taxes and see what happened to you. And so these people coming in living off your taxes and keeping your brothers and sisters in jail. These people living off your taxes and walking around in the community patting your baby on the head. And throwing some damn party in the summertime, throwing some Martin Luther King event, on Monday. While they're in the background making deals with this government in order to take us down. I'm saying we must attend these things and demand. I'm telling you, on Monday, the Martin Luther, and I'm not demonstrating against Martin Luther King. I'm demonstrating for Martin Luther King. That's what I'm saying. These pirates, these bastards of the movement, and like the same ones that turn around these politicians and talk about Malcolm. What did they didn't understand about Malcolm saying the ballot or the bullet? And you got people that is pushing policies that's putting out people in jail and quoting Malcolm. I'm saying, how do we allow that? How do we allow it? I am furious at the final call. And I'm going to let them know that. Seth Williams, a black DA in Philadelphia, the black man who ran for DA, stating that when he get in, he's going to kill Mumia. He's saying this to the people. And I'm saying, we're on the front line telling people about the innocence of Mumia, and those who know. I thought for sure the black radio stations in Philadelphia, the black nationalist groups in Philadelphia, that everybody would take a stand. Oh, no, you're not. But I'm saying, what happened? We became the damn enemy. But I don't mind being their goddamn enemy, because I ain't their friend. And I ain't trying to be their friend. I'm saying, this man was elected. You got people talking about the reason why we put him in is because he'll be good for other things. And we'll deal with him with Mumia afterwards. If you ain't dealing with wrong from the beginning, you can't deal with it, later on. And I keep saying, I'm pointing out that we have got to start going to these people's homes.
Yes,
they don't live on Mars.
That's right.
The black politicians and the white politicians.
Right.
They live in neighborhoods where they seem to be as acceptable and respectable and hip. And I'm saying we allow them to walk on through our neighborhoods, come on in our churches and stuff, come in our mosques and things, and talk that bull while, just hoping for too many years. We've been hoping that these people will do something right. And every time you turn around, we get less and less. Black folks say, we want our piece of the pie. Well, don't you understand? We are the motherfucking pie. Everybody is taking a piece here, a piece there, a piece there, a piece there. Look at your neighborhood. What part of that pie do you have? What part of it? I was in Chicago a couple weeks with Fred Hampton, and where the black striving community used to be, it's no more. That pie has been divvied out to everybody but black folks. All because we have become, and they study us. They study us. And when they study us, they see what it is that we're doing. Dr. Smalls, I thank you. And I'm glad I followed you. And because Dr. Smalls put it right out there where it's at. The brother that was up under Obama, and what's his name? Who was knocked off? Van Jones. Did you know he was knocked off because of Mumia? That other shit was a smoke screen. They laying things in place. Lamont Hill was on CNN, which was national news. There's nobody on national news to tell the story about Mumia, but they have laid everyone else in place to tell the lie. When this brother was knocked off that position, we should have rose, because there's nothing there anymore. not just for Mumia, but for us. The issue of doing our own media, there's a lot of people who do it, but we got to support it. We got to educate people to go on those stations. The brother that was up under Obama, what's his name? Who was knocked off? Van Jones. Did you know he was knocked off because of Mumia? That other shit was a smokescreen. They laying things in place. Lamont Hill was on CNN, which was national news. There's nobody on national news to tell the story about Mumia, but they have laid everyone else in place to tell the lie. When this brother was knocked off that position, we should have rose. Because there's nothing there anymore. Not just for Mumia, but for us. The issue of doing our own media, there's a lot of people who do it, but we got to support it. We got to educate people to go on those stations and, grab those newspapers. Nation Time and Herman and Aliua. I'm always pronouncing their name wrong. But they had that paper. It needed to be picked up. It needed to continue. Because there was another educational source. What our people, I'm saying that every last one of us in here, except for the little babies, is seasoned revolutionaries. We know. And we have got to pull ourselves together and pull together to stop what is getting ready to go down. They killed Shaka Sankofa. They killed Zion Israel, who was the first Black Panther, to be executed. How many people knew that?
That's right.
How many people knew that Mumia is not the first Black Panther that was up for execution?
That's right.
We got to teach each other.
That's right.
Zion Israel,
That's right.
Indiana.
Yeah, that's right.
Indiana.
Democrat.
I need the phone numbers, the emails